Jai Hind viewers, today it's my honor to host Radhika Singh on Achievers Articulate on the Global Strategic and Defense News. Radhika is a corporate czar who has worked at very senior positions in some of the world's finest multinational companies. She is also featured in CNBC's CEO's Got Talent. So the very talented Radhika is here on our show today. And without wasting any more time, because I know all of you would be quite eager to hear about the views and experience of Radhika. Radhika, first of all, welcome to Achievers Articulate.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Honored to be here.
Radhika, my first question to you is, can you please describe your journey from being the school's vice head girl to becoming a corporate czar to winning so many prestigious awards?
Yes, I can't believe, Jaswinder, that you still remember that. But yes, it's been a long journey, almost 25 years, all the way from, being school vice captain to a very interesting, very successful career in the corporate world. And I feel very grateful for the experience, but also that it's been a very joyful and challenging exploration for me of human potential, my own as well as everybody else's. So that's the part that really stays with me in terms of, what's been common through all of this time. I see myself as a versatilist, and that's pretty much how it's gone, because I started off, studying life sciences in my undergrad, wanted to be a medical doctor, then went into neurobiology because I thought that was what I really wanted to specialize in, and biotechnology and, things like that. Genetics were just taking off at that point in time, and went completely by default into mass communication. It just helped that I did write and edit my school magazine. So that was kind of like an asset, but not geared up for the 16 and 18 hours of work days and, 35 drafts of every script that we had to do to get approval. So that was really write the hard way. It was full, started off too. And then I had like a fantastic 8.5 years, as the Economic Times' youngest ever special correspondent, covered agriculture, food, won a UN award, which I used to say all the oldies get at the time, and I wasn't even 30. So yes, I was pretty much now in hindsight a young achiever. And, used to go to the best conferences and do the best stories all across the world. So have covered science and technology, covered defense, covered aviation, covered like drugs and pharmaceuticals. I think for somebody in your 20s, it was a pretty heady life. You've flown corporate jets, you've interviewed the top CEOs and bureaucrats and politicians. And of course, because you're with one of the top newspapers, I was with the Indian Express and the Economic Times, everybody wants to be known to you. So it was a pretty heady experience. But comes age 30 and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, it's been fun for 8.5 years, but I don't know if I want to keep doing this for the next 25 years, still going to more press conferences, looking out for that page one. I remember breaking a story on the ration card at the time, the food system, for the first time they were doing this above poverty line, below poverty line. And we were flashed across like 8 editions and 2 million people. And, every time you wrote something on a Boeing or a pharmaceutical company, ran back. So he was having a lot of stuff going on there, a lot of issues around patents, or you made a scientific sort of discovery that had happened and you wrote about it. You pretty much knew you moved the stock market. So again, from all actions, very versatile and very heady, for a young person to experience. I then got literally headhunted by GE, by General Electric, which was pretty much the number one firm in all of the industries that was in. And then it's been another like huge, crazy roller coaster ride, but all the ups I have to say on the roller coaster, not too many downs that I can remember. Of just traveling the world, exploring art, architecture, dance, music, food, writing. I mean, it was like, and learning just lots of new skills. Learning about like instructional design, learning about e-learning. It was a new world, going into consulting, just traveling all over the place, meeting all these, different people, all experts in what they do across industries, across geographies, across markets. So all the terms like growth markets and BRIC and EMEA, these were new things at the time and trending. So it was like quite something to experience that. And I had finished 20 years of my work life. I had come in from GE, then IBM, where I started their executive leadership development practice, fought to be this little Indian brown skin girl who said that, no, why do you have to fly in consultants from America? And they were like, because that's how we do it. And I was like, well, then I'm going to wait until you actually hire me and start the practice. So I actually didn't join IBM for 2 years. I worked as a consultant until they agreed to start the learning consulting practice and have an Indian do the role. So that was like pretty path breaking for its time. And then I got hired into the bank, literally plucked out of like IBM, where I had this very glamorous, very fascinating, very interesting and successful career. And I got plucked into Bank of America because they had just acquired Countrywide and they'd acquired Merrill Lynch. So there was like, they wanted somebody who was going to come and do all their talent management and succession planning and the whole works, basically, because there were 3 people for every role. So you had conservative, traditional, home loan guys from Countrywide. You had the very conservative bankers from Bank of America, like, we are the guys, we know how to do this. And then you had these hotshot Merrill Lynch investment bankers saying the rest of these guys all no good. So extremely strategic. So to do a whole strategic alignment was like a huge challenge, to be that person that was at the helm, picking out those people, because for every 3 people in the leadership team, you needed just one. And I had a whole huge learning and development portfolio. So to build their leadership for the next 3 or 5 years, to consolidate all these platforms, literally worked with I think I had about a $7 million budget. And by the time we finished with, I am a Six Sigma black belt, thanks to GE. So by the time we finished with, their entire sort of rationalizing, integration, all of that, we had cut down to 3.4 million or something like that. And they were like, this is insane. How can you do this? Like, how can you train and develop 22,000 people in this much? And we actually had like a proper calendar, which I'm very proud to say the then CEO still quotes. He's used it since in the organizations that he went to, because he's like, this is the best 100-day plan I ever had. So absolutely, just be best in class and have a blast. That's been my motto throughout. And I can't say it's been any other way.
Well,
That's
Radhika,
a long story, 5 years.
Well, it's really, interesting listening to you. And tell me something. I mean, having such a dream corporate job, what made you chuck all this and become an entrepreneur?
Right. Great question. Great question, Jacinda. I'm kind of like thinking, saying, wow, like, yeah, because everybody asked me that question when that happened. And truly, when I've reflected on it, it's based pretty much on a few principles, a few diktats that I've lived my life on, or my own hypothesis, if that's how you want to say it, for however different people will understand it. The first one is that I always believed that if you want to leave a legacy, and I've always been like about that person who, if you've done something and you've been in that job, people should remember you. They should just remember that this happened in this time. This person was leading this effort. That may come back to it at least for the next 2 or 3 at the top of your game. It doesn't come from when you retire or when you have passed away, or at least in the kind of fields that I was, So you are as good as your last story is what we were told in the media world. In the corporate world, again, you move from like one annual plan to another, and maybe you did a great job. Maybe you had like a very stunning career, but nobody really quite remembers you after that. There's many more people come, times change, things change. So the first thing that I always believed was that you've got to leave when you're at the top of your game. And I truly was at that point in time. I was a senior vice president. I was on the leadership team of Bank of America as one of the few women who had made it to the top, from an Asian country, Asia Pac, like is what I was leading. And it just seemed to me, I was like, you'll give me that next big car, you'll hike my allowance, I take home a fat bonus, you'll increase that probably, and then big deal. Like, how does it even matter? So at the end of the day, it was like, I've done what I have to. It's been super meaningful, the role that I got, and I'll always be grateful to them for, having picked me at that point, handpicked me. Literally, they were like, whatever you need, but we want you in that role. And then for it to all work out the way that it did, it was the whole thing of leaving when I'm at the top of my game. And I pretty much was sure I was doing that. The second thing I believed was, and I have that even till date, I know that you've done a lot of research and you've actually my website and everything, but pretty much the code I really believed in, I still do. I go by it. The rat race is over. The rats have won, and I am not a rat. So right from school, my assumption was it's not about like breaking a record because somebody else has come first and I need to beat them. I was just competing in my own lane. I think swimming must be the best measure of my life. I literally just swim in my own lane, and I'm like, I've got to max my speed. I've got to max my endurance. I've got to figure out what I can do better next. How many strokes do I know? Oh, I know now these three. I don't need to know the fourth one. Oh, I can swim 20 lengths. Let me go to 50. It's never been about who's in the next lane. It doesn't even bother me. Like, it's not even a number. So literally, that's it. So I'm not a rat. I've carved my own path. People said you can't do science and go to arts. You can't do this industry and go to that one. You can't do this role. You can't in 12 years move from assistant manager, which is what I started off as in GE, and go to a senior vice president with no favors, with proper promotions, with doing like maxing those grades, like you're a top ranker, like a +1 rater or a whatever grade they want to give you, like even in that. And it was like that for me right from school, as well. We've known each other then. I was on the school magazine. I was doing a music A. I was doing my dance performance. So it's just the story of my life. It's just what I like doing. The third thing I think that really helped me was I love playing Kingmaker. So I'm not very kicked about wearing the crown myself, though I have to say I've been very blessed and I have had my share of, winning lots of things and wearing that. But somehow the kick is not there for me. It's not like a big deal if, in school, this whole thing of being made school vice captain. In college, I was Miss Sophia. And, then again, my father was in the armed forces, so I've had all those whatever queen tags and the first runner up and then the winner and those winning all those prizes. Similarly in my corporate life, being that leadership top 100, and it's like a whole, it just goes on, and it's been I feel very blessed for it. But I have to tell you that the real kick for me, like the adrenaline, like works when I'm actually helping other people be their best selves. So working with other people's potential and helping them max it is a bigger kick than it happening for me or me doing it for myself, which I have done as well. So it's like personal experience, right? And that whole revelation that everybody can max their potential. There's just got to be a purpose to your life. So it drives me to, find my own self. It drives me to push other people saying, dude, you're really good at what you do. And that's what I do when I'm coaching now. And, I work with CEOs. I work with a lot of the CXO suite. I work with young entrepreneurs. I work with people who are making career switches. I work with young adults who are starting off. And I'm just like, how do I find, how do I help this person be the best that they can be at this point in their life? And how are they going to max their potential? So just maximize your performance and be the best at like whatever's your potential. So to me, that's exciting. Literally, how do you help people reach the top of their game? So that's what motivated me to then be an entrepreneur and say, I can do it in an organization. I've done it very successfully in IBM and in the bank. It was like a repeat thing for me. And I was like, wow, I'm able to replicate this. But then it was like, how do I help more people? So my whole dream was to be in India and just do this like for Indians, and say that how do we get them ahead? How do we work with women? Because it's so much more challenging. How do we work with younger kids? Because everybody's forced into, just to be a science, you do science, or, your dad was an engineer, so you be an engineer. And I was like, no, I've got to find these guys and help them be whatever they can be best and whatever they choose to be. So that's really my motivation.
That's really amazing and inspiring, Radhika. My next question to you is, can you please tell us something about Goddess Retreat, which is something of its kind for the first time done in Asia?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. In fact, that's my latest, most recent project, and it's gone through like a dream. So I'm still kind of like floating around, trying to figure out, make my notes, do my own debriefings from it, because we've literally just closed it less than about 2 weeks ago. But that was pretty much, from the last point that I was making. This whole thing of when I'm working with, let's say, the CXOs, or I do a lot of work with like the World Bank or with currently the ADB, so with these financial institutions. In all these places, I encounter more men than women. So my whole focus for the last 2.5 years was, how do I bring women into this? So for every 4 people that I coach that are gender specific men, I think I get like 1 odd woman, or even fewer, like maybe 7:1. So my whole thing was, how do you bring women who have been working, they've got about 15, 16 years of work ex, they've raised their families, or they're in the middle of doing that, but they're sort of not just kicked by the fact that who they want to be. They're very motivated by, I need to come back at this time. I need to do this. I need to do this for my kids. I always wanted to start my business, but wo himmat nahi hota. So I used to hear all these things and I was like, how do you help women develop a mindset which is far more strategic, which is far more expansive and global? And how do you kind of get past this and rewire their brains? So literally the attempt was, and I work a lot, all of my coaching experience has been in the neuroscience, brain-based kind of work. So life has come full circle for me from when I started studying neuroscience in college. Neurobiology is what I studied then. And in fact, I was in the top 2 in my class and I got this academic scholarship. And my head of department was very keen that I do my, master's and do my doctorate back then, because he was heading research. And research, it's a very interesting story, actually. Sorry, it's a side story, but I'll just tell you anyway. It's very interesting. The research they were doing was on the fruit fly, that little makhi that sits on the banana. It's called Drosophila melanogaster. And we used to help them as undergrad students. We used to make those, in those milk bottles, we had to make the whatever food for it with that agar and grow these makhis and keep them. Okay. And they're pretty creepy and they're sticky and they're chotu. And we used to just laugh saying this. And then when I got through because I was in the top 2, you're offered a seat in the university for your master's. And he said, and he headed the research. He said, you've got to sign up for this. And I was like, I don't want to have to look at this. It's bad enough I can't see that little makhi. I've got high myopia. I can't see it any which way with the naked eye. Then I have to look through it through a microscope for 2 years, because we were studying the brain of the Drosophila. That was going to be my research. So it was hilarious, because I'm saying, so I'm really sorry, but I don't see myself for 2 years looking through that microscope with already, my eyes are bad, and like to see that thing, I can't see it only. I can grow this stuff in the bottle and all for you, but uska brain, imagine that little makhi ka brain. And the beauty about it is that brain is 60% similar in its construction to a human brain. Did you even know that? Like fruit fly. So that's why I studied a lot, because you get a lot of junk DNA and all sequences which map to it. So this is my story from like some now 30 years ago. And to cut it short, but it's a very funny story I like telling. So I didn't do my master's then. Life brings you to your knees, as it were, or at least to crown you in whatever way you want to see it. But I come all the way back. I'm now trained in 4 and certified in 4 different neuroscience-based, brain-based techniques, to work with coaching. So I did end up there. I'm sure my professor's having the last laugh if he ever had to meet me, saying, "Ha, aur bhago dur tum neurobiology se." And I love it, because I get to go into people's brains and do some neuro hacking, figuring out how they can, even at whatever age they are, learn new things. So how do you teach an old dog new tricks? So how do you help these women? That was my motivation. And how do you help them rewire their brain so that they are beyond that, I'm tired, I'm ill, I don't have more energy. So literally we spent about 5 days just working with, how to become the boss. That's what I call it very simply. How do you be your best self? How do you be the boss of your mind, body, your emotions, your spirit, as it were. So whatever you want to call it, if you want to take it like, to a level of saying that these days you have wellness, you have mindfulness, you have all kinds of terms, you have breath work. To me, they're all ways to control your sensory faculties to the point where your awareness is so heightened and that you're experiencing it. It's like in this interview, we are just working with eyes and sound. So even our visual perception is limited, but it's going to be mostly an auditory experience. So how do you make this experience about using all your sensory perceptions, and how you experience life from there? Will it be more balanced? Will you then get out of your fight or fight mode, and always be in that stress of the kids bother me, my husband doesn't do this, I need to do this, the boss troubles me? So now you can really relax, take control of your own mind, body, and emotions, and operate at what would lead you to your best self. And then on the last day, we spend time working with them with a beautiful, it's called a neurological model. It's a beautiful model that you work with, which upturns Maslow's hierarchy for those people who do understand some basic psychology. And we get into finding the purpose or the focus. So if you wanted to write that book you always did, if you wanted to do that, open that business you always did, if you wanted to be like a particular level in the job or the company that you're in, then this retreat is what you wanted to do. And the reason I call it the goddess retreat is because even neuroscience research is now saying that we are going to get away a little bit from being in our masculine energy, which means that whole business about controlling people and disciplining them in a very punishing way, to be accomplished through being a little more nurturing, through being like more accepting of life, so more surrendering. So to be in that mode and be part of collective consciousness, that's really where the world is going. So if we can understand leadership from that, it's no longer about being so individualistic, it's about being part of a whole. I think the army does that beautifully in many ways, in just bringing everybody and tuning in your mind, your body, but I think the focus is still on the body. I would love to do like neuroscience and neuroplasticity with them, where I'm saying, before you get a guy to just jump into that pool or like make him like die 1,000 deaths, can I just like talk to him and tune him in on certain exercises so he will willingly make that jump? So for me, the biggest learning from the goddess retreat is that willpower does not have to be forced. We've always used willpower as something where we are forcing things, I want willpower to be newly written as willingly empower. So it's not willpower, it's willingly empower. So can you do that for yourself? And I think that people don't have to go to like babas and gods and teachers. I think that everybody has the power to do that within themselves. And it's the mission of my life I wanted to first work with women, but maybe I'll also do this with men and with kids. But initially the aim is because I think they are the ones who really need that bit about, exploring themselves and finding their own potential and then pushing a little bit beyond limits, and to do it in a way that uses, your brain. So in a more relaxed way, in a more joyful, enabling way. It can be fun. It doesn't have to be stressful, is my point. So that's really what the goddess retreat was about. And of course, we had this absolutely glorious location. So it's been stunning in terms of finding the right venue, finding the right kind of food to eat so that people's hormones, I work with how your neurotransmitters will work optimally. That's when you're consuming the right, like giving them the right nourishment. So what kind of food you eat, what kind of water you drink, what kind of quality of sleep you have, how you work with your immunity. So just kind of like working with your thymus gland and to relax your body and do that. And yeah, they learned all of those things. And yeah, let's see how they shape up.
That's superbly amazing, Radhika. My final question to you is, what advice would you give to the youth of the world who are now at a critical path of their career and they want to carve out something, unique and satisfying for themselves?
Wow. Yeah, that's so true and so beautiful. And I have to say that I absolutely am in love with this whole generation. I really think they have it within themselves to bring about the change that the world needs to just make this a more peaceful and better place. However, it's going to take some work and some method in the madness to do it. And I get a little bit disturbed when I hear about lots of them with mental health issues or feeling too stressed or landing up in jobs where they are unhappy. So yes, you're right. How do we kind of motivate these people? And I do a lot of work with young adults. I work with both biometric and psychometric tests to help them understand where they are at. But a large part of my counseling work comes from using that neuroplasticity, using neuroscience. Like I've had these discussions with some kids' parents, like a 16-year-old, and they're saying he's got board exams and, the 10th exams are here and he's just playing with games. And I was like, if you can use those games, I said, the deal is, can he use a different game every week? And they just looked at me and said, you can't say this to him. I was like, if that's his learning path, then I want him to keep generating new neural connections. And if that's what's going to stimulate his prefrontal cortex, so be it. You want him to do well in the 10th, that's your objective. His is to keep using his, keep playing his games and not kind of study as much. Can we use this to actually help him do well in his 10th? And we created a plan for that. And he's done absolutely brilliantly well. The kid is now off on his way. He's since finished his 12th and gone off. So there's a lot of stories like that, which if you channelize kids the right way and you show them how to work with their strengths and interests, like if you could teach a kid who's really good at sports to be also good in math by helping him work through it on a football field, we'd be way more successful. The thing is, we don't always try that. So what's my to answer your question directly, what's my advice, or I don't like to call it advice, I feel very granny momish, but what are my learnings in life, and what would I like to say to them? I would say, just focus on becoming the captain of your body, your mind, body, spirit. The name, the fame, the money, they'll all come if your focus is on being the best version of yourself. So it's not about being science student or art student. That's too shallow a goal. It's too small a thing to worry about. You've got to worry about something much larger than that and figure out, why the hell am I here? What did I come to do, on the planet? Like, why have I suddenly landed up to these two people and what am I trying to do with it? So do that by breathing, exercising, eating well, sleeping well. If fitness is your goal, if whatever's your method to do that, but live a life that's a little more holistic. For starters, that's going to get you to at least the point where you can now start learning well, your memory improves, your ability to make neural connections increases. Now you can start working on your skill. So how do you do that? Point number 2 is, please stay whole brain. I tell every kid this. Please stay whole brain, which means do things that fall within the left brain and the right brain, at least till you are 25 years of age. Don't be on this, I'm going to be a doctor, I decided at 7, and it's okay for those who did, and if that's their path. But we need more and more and more people who can also do the science part of it, can also do the logic and do the engineering or be an architect. But that's kind of on the right brain to be, because your visual spatial orientation has to be great to be an architect or a pilot. And thankfully, people are making those choices. But also to explore music, to explore the arts, to do sports. You've got to build your cognitive ability in a way that balances out both. The people who are going to take the best decisions as adults, and research shows this backwards, like we have the pleasure of hindsight and working and analyzing adults. If you have very strong, very good cognitive ability, pretty much like yourself, you do so many things, you're versatile, your ability to make decisions is going to be way better than somebody else that just did one thing, stuck with it, stopped learning and said, no, now I'm just gone into this career and this is what I learn for the rest of my life. Because you stop learning new things. The brain is a very adapted, very flexible organ. Usko aap agar zyada push karoge, so it goes all the way. If you tell it, bas, this is how much you need, it's going to do that much. So my point is, just do as many things, explore the world. If you wanted to, be like a doctor, go and do an internship. You don't have to go and do the whole 5-year course. I know any number of 28 to 32-year-olds today who've gone and done their degrees, who've studied abroad in some of the best colleges their parents sent them, and now they're saying, I don't want to. They've got the best companies for jobs. They're like, I don't want to do this. So that's because you didn't do your work in the beginning and you didn't develop all these other skills. So there are now ways to figure out what those multiple skills are. But every parent, ask your parents to push you into those things. Use your peer group to get pushed into doing different things, like a debating, like also a sport, like also music, like also playing chess, just things which just boggle the mind and create as many neural networks as possible, because then you can do anything. Every child is born with pretty much the same potential. Intelligence as it's measured now is not like in the old way or doing an IQ test. So literally we almost all, unless you have a mental kind of illness or a whatever disorder, almost every kid has the same potential. It's after that, the environment. So literally nature and nurture both. latter part of it that determines whether we're also people bring us down, to the end. So, point of this 2 years, if people have been really successful because they landed that very fancy investment banker job in the first 5 years, I promise you, after that, at some stage, even they reach a plateau and struggle. So it's that we can't see the whole thing, pretty much in cycles. We all will go through that up and down. So enjoy life and don't take yourself too seriously. Really, just, ease up about who you are and what you become and the designation and the CTC and the degrees and like, it's okay, chill. Everybody's doing it. So yeah, that's what I would say to them.
Thank you so much, Radhika. It was so engrossing and enriching listening to you. I'm sure the viewers would have enjoyed it immensely. Thank you once again for coming on the Global Strategic and Defense News.
Thank you so much and all the best. I'm like so excited to share all of this stuff with you. I hope it inspires some people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.